Greetings and welcome to Battle Creek Middle School. I am Kalia Yang. I am the proud principal here at Battle Creek Middle School, home of the Panthers. I really appreciate everybody coming out tonight on this very special occasion. On behalf of my entire staff, my students, we welcome you to this wonderful celebration. I do want to just take a moment to acknowledge a couple folks that's here with us today. First, I'm going to take my glasses off so I can see a little better. I'd like to acknowledge Mary Zhang, Senior Director of Public Engagement for the office from Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan's office. We have City of St. Paul, Ward 7, Councilwoman Shaniqua Johnson, who's here with us today. We also have Assistant Superintendent of St. Paul Public Schools, Dr. Zer Van here as well. And I think some of us is a little bit still starstruck, but we have Bunyi Shao, Hmong artist, here today, right here in the front. And then I also want to introduce my colleague, Principal B. Vang, who's here with us tonight as well. We are extremely happy to have the honor of hosting author Kao Kalia Yang, or as some of you know as Kao Kalia Yang, as she's here to debut her first middle school novel called The Diamond Explorer. So Kalia was here this morning. You know, if you can imagine, this entire room was packed with students. It was hot, lots of folks, and so this is our second celebration. Today, again, was with our students and staff. We have limited seating, so we had to kind of break it up in two. And so I do appreciate everyone being able to come here tonight. This evening, again, we are thrilled that you all are able to come here for the second evening to celebrate this very momentous occasion. And really, the fact that we're here together as a community, not only Battle Creek, but as Eastside St. Paul, as former St. Paul kids, people that live in this residence, people that have kids, we're all here tonight, and there couldn't be a better evening for this. And here to introduce our author, Kalia Yang, it is my pleasure to introduce Shaniqua Johnson, City of St. Paul, Ward 7 Councilwoman. But before she comes out, I'm just going to give you a little bio about who she is. Councilwoman Johnson represents Ward 7, which includes Battle Creek Middle School area. She was the first generation college student and TRIO alumna. At 29, Councilwoman Johnson is currently the youngest council member on the council, along with Councilmember Nelsie Yang, who will be, I believe, coming here tonight as well with her family. Councilmember Johnson was a program officer at the St. Paul and Minnesota Foundation, where she supported the work of nonprofit organizations throughout the state. She is a Dayton's Bluff resident, and besides spending time with her lovely family, she enjoys socializing, organizing, and playing the alto saxophone. Please join me in welcoming Councilwoman Johnson. Okay.
All right. Well, I'm so excited to be here, and I can only imagine the morning show with all of the young people who were thrilled, just like we are, to hear from Kalia Yang. So I have a very personal story with Kao Kalia Yang, because as a freshman at the University of Minnesota, The Late Homecomer was actually the first book I got to read as a first-generation college student. And I remember hearing about the story, both in written form, and then I had the honor of hearing her speak. And as we know, she's a Hmong American teacher, speaker, and writer. Her work crosses audiences and genres. She's an award-winning author of the memoirs, The Late Homecomer, The Song Poet, Somewhere in the Unknown World, and Where Rivers Part. Yang co-edited the groundbreaking book, What God Is Honored Here. She's worked on many things and has been recognized by the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Book Critics Circle Award, the Chautauqua Prize, the PEN USA Literary Awards, the Dayton's the Literary Peace Prize, as notable books by the American Library Association, Kirkus Best Book of the Year, the Heartland's Booksellers Award, and garnered 4 Minnesota Books Awards. And at first, I wasn't going to go through the full list of honors because I know sometimes, one, her resume is long, her CV is longer, her publishing work is truly something that we can take pride in. But I think the most important part that just continues to amaze me is how humble this woman is. Every time I hear her speak, every time we get a chance to really just see bits and pieces of your story, it truly means the world to a lot of us. She's a current East Sider, a Ward 7 resident, as well as is a St. Paul Public School parent to 3 children. And she arrived here when she was 6 years old. And now we get to see and cherish these moments with her. So without further ado, I just want to take the time to personally introduce Kao Kalia Yang. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yes, no problem.
Okay. Now we'll have to turn this one on. Perfect. Can you all hear me?
Is it on?
It is on now. Can you all hear me? Thank you, Principal Yang, for hosting me twice today, you and your team. What a dream. And thank you all for being here. I'm so honored to be here. This is a 4-book release year for me. This is my 4th and final title of the year, and I've saved a public school event for this particular book. The moment I became a writer, The Late Homecomer was read everywhere, and every time I entered the schools, they'd say, "When are you going to write for us? When are you going to write for us?" And a lot of the middle schoolers have been particularly requesting a scary book. And I know, I don't know about other writers, but for me, if I'm going to scare my audience, I have to scare myself first. And so I had to be ready for some sleepless nights. This book wouldn't be possible without the guidance of Andrew Carr, my editor who's here. Andrew is one of the bravest editors in publishing today. And I think it takes this kind of editor to bring this kind of book into the world. So Andrew, thank you for shepherding me along. This book began in 2017, it's now 2024. If you know anything about me, you know that Kalia speeds on the page and in cars. Not a good idea in cars, but on the page I do. This one has taken so long because Malcolm is a one-of-a-kind character. Malcolm forced me to wait, to do what I cannot do in my life, which is to be patient with the world, to give the world a greater chance. So with that, I'm going to open up by doing a reading immediately from the Diamond Explorer, but I'm going to actually read a little bit from the back, the acknowledgement, because I think that is so important to this book. This book began because of Maxwell, the original Diamond Explorer. Max, thank you for allowing me to take inspiration from your truths and for letting me be part of the arms that pull you home when the winds of the world are in danger of lifting you away. For fighting my hold when you know that you need to fly to get to where you must go. I admire your confusion, your wisdom, and your turbulent spirit, the turbulent spirit that you house beneath that ocean of calm. For all the young people in this room and in our world, for all the young people who are told their stories long before they get to discover and live them, may you hold the truth of these tales in your arsenal of memory as you forge your own trajectories and blaze trails into the dark of our fears so that we might anchor more firmly together as a human race. For all the adults who love those young people, may we be kind to ourselves. Understand that the strength of our love is not limited by our range of experiences and understanding, but its ability to expand where the young take us. For all the people who loved Philando Castile and Fong Li, Mr. Phil for the J.J. Hill community, mentioned in the pages of this book, please know that his life and his death have caused a great stirring in the homes and the hearts of many people, shedding light into the deeper caverns of race in America, light that will shine far beyond the reaches of any one life. The ghost of Fong Li was with me the whole time I was writing this book, and so it is no surprise that one of the characters in here is named Fong. Fong Li, who on a sidewalk in a park this summer I saw carved, Fong Li was here. Fong Li, who was murdered in 2006, whose murder remains a great mystery to some, but to others, we know exactly why he was killed. To make the book scary, I located it in our world. To make this book scary, I located it in our schools. To make this book scary, I located it right into our deepest fears as a community and as a people. But this book, unlike many middle grade novels, begins not with our protagonist leading the way, but with teachers, with parents, with siblings, how we all see this one kid. And I want to honor a real Miss Stacy by reading from this first part of the book. So this is a teacher seeing this kid for the first time. On the day that I first noticed Malcolm, the sky was particularly thick, a slate of gray hanging low. The air was dense and moist after weeks of freezing cold. Fluffy flakes fell from clouds overhead and collected on the ground. The children were required to wear snow pants, snow boots, hats, and mittens, in addition to the thick winter jackets. Malcolm, a stranger on the play yard, was short, and in his winter gear he appeared particularly round. Despite the fact that he was not a chubby child, he played by himself, which some of the kids liked to do. I tried not to intervene. Malcolm drew my attention only because he was making a small snowman right in the middle of the sidewalk, in front of the big doors that led back into the school. The snowman was no taller than his knees, 3 uneven balls of snow, one on top of the other. From beneath the snow, somewhere on the playground, he found twigs and he used them as legs atop the 3rd snowball. On the first, the smallest of the rounds he'd made, Malcolm had poked in holes for eyes. The mouth was a small speck of black, a mouth opened in surprise, an upside-down snowman with his legs sticking in the air. Miss Hawley, the gym teacher, came out ringing her special bell around the playground to signal that recess was over. The school had decided years ago that this bell was gentler than the public school alarms. The bigger boys rushed to be the first to return to the warmth of the building. A flood of children came at Malcolm and his snowman. I thought he'd move out of the way and the snowman would be crushed, but I was wrong. Malcolm crouched above his small creation, hands in a circle around the 3 balls of snow, his head down in the avalanche of children. The kids did not plow over him, although a few of them yelled for him to get out of the way. I was surprised to see the wave of students part around Malcolm and his little snowman. The image warmed my heart. My heart skipped when a little girl I also recognized from Mrs. O'Gorman's class knelt beside Malcolm, spread her arms wide, and helped him safeguard the snowman. The two waited until all the children had entered the heavy doors, until they knew that the snowman was safe before they got up and walked into the building. After school that day, I visited Miss O'Gorman and asked her about the new boy I had noticed on the playground. She told me his name was Malcolm. She said, "He's the gentle one." It would take him a long time to get to me, but even then I knew Malcolm was not only gentle, but also special. I knew that I would never forget the image of that young boy crouching over the upside-down snowman, protecting it. I started watching out for Malcolm long before he met me or became a student of mine. And then I'm going to take you to the very end. One of the big questions of this book is, if this is the life we live, if this is the world that we're in, then what is the point? If the walls are so thick, if there are so many things waiting, arms hoping to push us down, then what is the point? And everybody tries to tell this kid what the point is. But we all know that the secret to life is that we must discover the reason why we're in it. We must discover why it matters. And so this chapter 24, is in Malcolm's voice, and this is one of the reasons why. I hear my mother's voice, "Malcolm, Malcolm, come back. I don't want to. I am tired. My body sinks and sinks, and can I get low enough? I'm in the sky, a floating boy among the clouds. The earth is far below me. Malcolm, wake up, return to me." Why won't she leave me alone? I turn away from her words, her desperate words. I close my eyes once again. In one world, I'm running alongside First Uncle where the grass is so green that it looks blue. He is telling me stories. He is telling me stories about Curly from long ago, about the night the thief visited his family, about the animals that roam these ancient hunting grounds. In another world, I am with a relative I've never met, Ying, and he too tells me stories. He talks about his life in California, in the fields, his life before he was sick, playing all the sports, his life after he got his cancer diagnosis, how slow death felt and then how fast near the end. He and I are at the edge of a fast-flowing river, foaming at the sides, its currents creating a sound like wind. He tells me that if we drink from its contents, we will forget everything and everyone we have ever known. In yet another world, I'm with Bo. She lives in a small village halfway up a steep mountain. She's surrounded by friends and family, and they tend to animals and gardens and live in the routines from long ago Laos. More than the other two, she's not pleased with my presence in her world. She wants me to leave. She urges me to return. I don't want to return to a world where we're always afraid, for Feng, for me, for Linda. I don't want to return to a world that does not need me, that shows me that my life is not worth anything, that I am no one. Even if there are people who love me, their love grows exhausting. I'm floating again. I realize slowly that I'm not on air. In fact, I seem to be on a fabric of sky. My 2 animal brigade is holding up the edges of whatever I'm floating on. They look at me with their round eyes, their chubby cheeks, the brown teddy bear and the stuffed tiger cub make me smile as I close my heavy eyes again. They are my friends. They have always been. They accompany me places. In fact, they take me places I have never been. When I wake again, I am in a campground. I see bonfires glowing orange in the blue tint of night. In front of me are 4 chairs. In one, there is an old, balding Hmong man. In 2 others, a pair of old Hmong women. In the light of the fire, I see their wrinkles, the silver in the women's hair. One of the chairs is empty. The old man sees me first, standing at a distance from the warmth of the fire. He calls out to me with a voice I almost know. He says, "Malcolm, come sit in your chair." I ask, "Why, were you waiting for me?" He answers, "Yes, of course. You are so slow. You always take the longest time." The women wave me over. I know True's voice anywhere. She, the oldest person at the fire, says, "Malcolm, law, law." I've heard these words before, all my life. "Malcolm, come to me." The cancer wall with Gu's voice, those words leading me. I'm lost in them. How did True get so old? I search the faces of the other 2 in the light of the fire, and I know who they are, my brother and sisters. They're all old. I look down at my hands. I have the hands of a kid. My own hands. I feel my face, firm face of youth. I clear my throat. I know I'm younger than they are, but I'm not this much younger. I miss them. I hadn't realized how much I've missed them. My feet run to where they are. I get close enough to feel the warmth of their fire as I lean down to hold each close. Though they say nothing, I can feel it in the tightness of their hugs, and I know that they too have missed me. In my seat, I look at them, marveling at the changes in their faces. In the house on the prairie, Linda once showed me an app on her phone that turned a photo of me into an old man. She shared the image with Mom, and Mom burst out crying and said, "I love my baby too much." When I asked her why she was crying, she said, "Because I cannot bear the thought of you growing old. Because I cannot bear the thought of you growing old. I don't want to think about you in a world without me." I remember thinking that it was a dramatic response, but seeing my siblings this way, I feel tears gathering. Like all the other times in our lives, I wait for my older siblings to tell me what is going on. In all of our conversations, they're always the ones eager to talk, the ones who know more than I do. I'm always the one listening. But this night, around this campfire, all of us reunited again does not feel like a regular encounter. Fong is the first to speak. He says, "We've been waiting here for you. We didn't know if you would come. I thought you lost your way, but True and Linda insisted that you'd find us." I ask, "How long have you been waiting?" Fong looks down at his old man's hands, opens and closes his fingers, then answers, "A long time, Malcolm. Why did you think I was lost?" From across the fire, Linda looks at me closely, almost harshly. Her voice shows her impatience. "Because you are always lost, Malcolm. Some of us fight to find our way, but you've always gravitated toward getting lost." I find myself apologizing here, just as I would in that house on the prairie. I say, "I'm sorry, I didn't know where I was going or why. If I'd known that I needed to meet you here, I'd have come sooner." I confuse myself. How could I have gone here anyway? How did I get here? I blink. On my way to the other worlds, I just found myself beside other people, and they just started talking to me. This time, I feel I've done something wrong. I ask, "How late is it? How am I late? How late am I?" Linda answers, "Almost too late." Linda answers, "Almost too late? What do you mean by that? You almost missed us, Malcolm." Her voice rises in anger, "And that is not the way it is supposed to go. We take care of you so that you can take care of us. You can't just disappear. You can't just quit. That's not fair, Malcolm." The familiar defiant light of Linda from long ago, from before college, burns in the body of the old woman before me. She leans toward me. She's almost shouting, her voice quivering. You can't treat family like that." She points a crooked finger toward her own chest. "I wanted to quit. We all did, Malcolm. At different points, do you think you're the only one who has it hard, that your life is harder than ours, or anyone else's in the world?" True reaches out a hand to touch Linda's shoulders. She shushes her the way she shushes all of us. "Shh, shh, Linda, he's here now. It's not too late." "Too late for what?" I'm nearly screaming my confusion. True answers me, her eyes steady. "To be with us, Malcolm, that's what." This journey is so short, Malcolm. It feels just like yesterday I was young. Look at me today. You were a baby in my arms, dancing beneath the stars. Now look at you. I stare at my oldest sister, the one who took care of me as a baby, the one I've lived with even more than I've lived with my parents, day by day, hour by hour. A cool breeze blows, the flames of the fire dance into the sky, and the wood pops as sparks fly. True's next words are so soft, I can barely hear them. "Malcolm, we've been waiting for you to grow up so that you can grow old with us. All this time." And that is a little bit from the book. The book is really at its heart, it's about meeting ourselves. It's about venturing into the places that we've heard of, into the places we imagine. It is a book about family, because family has been my greatest anchor, continues to be my greatest foundation for everything I do. And I'm so honored that this book is now in the world. I don't think of myself as a brave person. I'm a tiny Hmong woman with a soft voice. But the work that I've been able to do on the pages of my books has been tremendously brave because of my community, because of all of you. You know, whenever I do anything, there's always a community component because I want to make sure the doors are open. When people pay me lots of money to go to speak, the rooms fill up. They fill up all on their own. But for me, it is so important to do events like this one. People are always asking, when you're a writer, who are you writing for? And when I was very young, I said defiantly, I said, I'm writing for the people who would understand, and then those who wouldn't. But I'm 43 this year. I look in the mirror and I can see white strands in my hair. I see all of Harding's National Honor Society students, and I remember that long ago I was where you were, a Harding National Honor Society student. At 43, I can tell you that when I write these books, I'm writing them for us. I'm writing them for all of us who grew up without books like these in our hands, available to us. I'm writing them for all of the educators in the room who need resources to work from to tell the stories of who we are. I write these books in the hopes that even if you can't find belonging in the world, that you will find in the pages within these covers a place where you might feel your beating heart, where you would know that you are not alone, that you have never been alone, and that someday we will still adventure to the future together, and that the future is a beautiful place because we will be there, and because our hearts are beautiful spaces. People talk a lot about how impressed they are by the Hmong American community, that we have educators and doctors and lawyers. Rarely do they talk about the Hmong heart, the heart that continues to beat for each other. So that is why I do the work I do, and that is why I'm so moved that when the doors open, that those who can, that you come. So I'm here for you. As you know, I didn't prepare any speeches. I'm here for you, and I want to give you an opportunity to talk to me. I know that we have microphones, and so please, this is for you. If you have any questions, any thoughts, or any comments, I would love to hear them. My way of answering isn't really because I know things. It's only because I care. Because as I said this morning, knowledge changes. Knowledge changes all the time. I was that kid at Murray Junior High who was taught that matter could not be created. And now I know that with massive amounts of energy, as all of you know, we can create small bits of matter. Knowledge changes. The only thing that doesn't is one human heart that cares about the other. So please.
So this is a wonderful opportunity for our audience to be able to ask questions of Kalia. And before we do that, I would just like to take a moment to also acknowledge that Kalia, many of Kalia's family members are actually here tonight. And if you wouldn't mind, not to put you all on the spot, but could you stand up, all of her siblings, if you could stand up, and her lovely husband and their wonderful 3 kids too. So again, these are her family that are here tonight to celebrate with us. Thank you for coming here and to celebrate. I also just want to acknowledge that Councilwoman Nancy Yang is here with her lovely family in the back. So you can say hi as Councilwoman Nancy Yang from Ward 6 of East St. Paul. Okay. All right, so I know I still have questions from this morning because we have a lot more kids. We didn't have enough time because we did one class period. So I'm going to help them, but I want first to see if anyone from the audience has a question for our author. Anyone?
Oh, hello.
Well, good evening. My question is, it appears from rereading that you're choosing to write this book from other people's perspectives of this young person. Why did you choose this approach, and why do you think it would be effective to middle school type readers?
Thank you for your question. That's my older sister, and I know she likes to say, she's always been the wind beneath my wings, but I want to give her a shout out. Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Penny Flanagan has just appointed her as a judge in these cities. So soon she shall take her place there. And I just want to say, when we were little girls, Daud would tell me all the time, she would say, what is your dream for the future, and how are you going to get there? She would always say, what can we do to make ourselves better human beings? I'm 43 and I've met a lot more people than just Daud, but nobody continues to ask those questions the way she does. And so I'm so much standing here before you because of those questions, because of those words, Doug. That heart that continues, not to push yourself necessarily, but to push all of us forward together. I wrote this book from everybody else's perspectives because I think so often we silence our young without knowing. I think that we all want them to succeed, we all have advice, and we all have feedback, and we all have ideas. I think that each of us has a place for a young person in the stories of our lives. I think that sometimes we even think we know their stories. But the truth is, how can we know it if they do not? And so I wanted the world to meet all of these perspectives before they meet Malcolm. If you're a person of color, if you're a kid of color, you know what it's like to enter into a classroom, to know that the person before you has met 10,000 stories of who you might be. To walk in there under the weight of all of that, with that as an anchor, but also that heaviness that holds you to the ground. And then there is something else about this character. In the realm of fiction, different characters have different attitudes, I'm learning. And Malcolm, he's gonna make you work through all of this before you get to him. He's stubborn. Malcolm is stubborn. Malcolm is gonna make you get to know everybody else, but you can get to the beating heart of Malcolm. And so this character just kept on holding me back because he wasn't ready yet. And when he was, he took me on a ride that I couldn't have imagined. And I think that's the gift of fiction. And I stand here as a memoirist first and foremost. That's where I built my first home, as a picture book author. But in the realm of fiction, which is something new for me, and in this, a middle grade fiction, a chapter book, I was surprised to find such a stubborn character leading me through. So many different stories entangled in the one that would be his own. Because we, each and every single one of us, we are a collection of stories. But we cannot forget that no matter how powerful those stories are, they cannot be as powerful as the one that we will live, the one that we will give to the world. And so that was important for me, to introduce you to this kid who everybody thinks they know good and bad and everything else. And then for him to go on this journey, this scary journey, to meet himself. So the psychology of the writing made sense to my understanding as a once young person, but also as an adult who loves so many young people. At every step, I felt my own limitations. And I let those limitations guide me in a way that I've not done before on the page. Did I answer your question?
I think yes, a young person right here.
Harding Nights. One more time, I want to make sure I can hear your question.
You said that you started looking at 17. Why did it take you so long to finish?
That is such a good question. So on average, it takes 5 years to write a book in America. Generally, I like to think I'm faster than the average. I don't run very fast in real life, but on the page, my fingers move very fast. I average about 29 pages if I sit at a place for 2 hours, right? Which is pretty fast. And not everything I write deserves to be published. So there's really no need to be impressed. It's just the speed of the fingers on the page. But for this particular book, I first envisioned it as a picture book. But that was too small to hold the story. And then when I teamed up with Andrew, Andrew said what no editor had said. Andrew says, write whatever you need to write. And that's what I did. I wrote everything I needed to write. I wrote nonfiction, I wrote fiction, I wrote all kinds of things. And then slowly the story started coming together because Malcolm became stronger and stronger on the page. And because when I'm really writing, I don't sleep very well. And so there are parts in this book where Malcolm hears a story about Curly, his cousin, and two Bonzong, right? As I was writing that scene with the Bonzong, I couldn't sleep for like a week. Because every time I'd sleep, I would hear their voices speaking. And this time, they weren't interested in Curly and her baby in the jungles of Laos. They were interested in me and mine. And because I know that every single poor person has a place in their house that causes cancer. We grew up with a wall in the basement, and it's called the cancer wall. And Mom and Dad said to us, don't go near it, don't go near it. But in this book, I was going to have Malcolm, this character that I really loved, go and not only look at it, but he was going to touch it, he was going to smell it. Whatever was in there was going to come out and go after him. And when you really love a character, it takes you a long time to get there. It takes you a long time to trust that they can survive that kind of encounter. And so this is a scary book. There are many parts of it that scares me in different ways. And to meet that fear head on, to meet that fear in a responsible way, it took a long time. Because I understood my audience, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds. I understood my audience, and I think as a responsible writer, I wanted to do it right. And so it took the time that it needed, which is another lesson of life. When I was young, if anybody had told me it'd take you that long to write a book, I would have, scoffed. Not me, but this one took a long time. And I think when you read it, you will know exactly why.
So this is probably not going to get serious with everyone else's. But if you had to give advice for young writers out there who also want to share their stories, what kind of advice would you give them?
I love this question because I was once a young writer. When I was a young writer, you know what the hardest part for me was whenever I wrote? I could do 1,000 beginnings, but it was very hard for me to get to the end of a story. And I would always write stories about things that were happening in my life, so I didn't know how to solve it. So in the end, I would kill myself and said the end. And a teacher told me that I was cheating, that the role of a writer isn't to solve all of the problems of the world, but to encounter it as transparently and as honestly as possible. To understand that even though a book ends, that the writer's heart continues. That I've written countless endings for Malcolm in my head and in my heart since the day I said to Andrew, this thing is done, right? These things live on inside of us. The hardest thing for me to do as a young writer was to understand that even if the world felt like this thing wasn't worth doing, that it was the best I had to give the world around me. And that meant something. First to the people who loved me, but then to everybody else in the world too, to stand 410 defiantly and say, while the Hmong are a small piece of the world's population, our stories are as important as any other story out there. To say that those shells have space for us too. And then I get to meet young writers like all of you. And you know what? So much of what I do on the pages, I tell the stories that I've been waiting my whole life to hear, in the hopes that it might inspire somebody else. If you're a young writer, all I gotta say to you is, you can't listen to the world. You have to listen to yourself. You have to do the work that you believe needs to be done, first and foremost. Everybody else in the world will have an idea of what you should do with your time. But to survive as a writer, you have to understand that the time that you give to the page is time that matters, not only to you, but to the whole world. Only the world doesn't know it, may never know it. That kind of defiance is important. And everybody who knows me says I'm so obedient, including my parents most of the time. But they will also tell you this about me. If they ask you, if somebody were to ask my mom and dad, why do you think Kalia has survived in writing, survived as an artist? Because in America, it is harder to survive as an artist than it is to become like a professional athlete. And clearly, I'm not an athlete. But my dad will tell you, because Kalia is like the dog after the scent of a bone. She doesn't know when to let go. She doesn't know when to let go. And this does not mean that I don't suffer defeats. This does not mean that every answer is a yes. It just means that if I can't go over a wall, I'm going to go around it. If I can't go around, I'm going to crawl underneath it. You know what? And if there's no way, then I'm going to imagine what's on the other side, render that wall transparent. Because that's the kind of heart you need to survive on the page. The page is a blank slate. It's a blank slate. And you have to somehow free yourselves from the shackles of society, from their expectations of who you are and what you can do. So for the writer, I say be defiant. I say silence that world outside and unleash the one within. Anybody else? Oh, Harding, you all are representing so beautifully.
So I have not read the book The Song Poet yet, but I saw the opera rendition of it. I just wanted to ask, how do you feel about having your work be basically remade into like a different genre? Not different genre, remix.
I'm so happy that you saw the Song Poet opera. I said to the Minnesota Opera, I said, I want to have as many Hmong people here as possible. And so they opened up dress rehearsals and students were able to come in, and I am so grateful for that. The Song Poet is an interesting book because it is a book based very much on my father's life and his art. My father's a song poet in the Hmong tradition. I think he's a great poet in a language that very few people know. But when the opportunity came for the book to survive as an opera, to live as an opera, I immediately said yes, because my father's words are meant to be song. I can tell you this, the most important thing was, initially when the Minnesota Opera, when they thought of it as an opera, they went to a New York librettist. A librettist is somebody who writes the songs, right? And so they were gonna adapt my book into this opera with a New York librettist who was very famous. But that became an immediate problem because that librettist said, oh, I want to use you to say the things that I wanted to say to the world. As an artist who's fought so hard for her voice, because when I was your age, I didn't speak. I was a selective mute in English. Nobody at Harding knew what I sounded like above a whisper. I was immediately suspicious. And then when she came back with that first adaptation, it was no good. It was no good. It couldn't stand. It wasn't reflective of the Hmong community, of the reason why we exist and the stories that we come from and the love that we live. And so I said to Minnesota Opera, I said, this doesn't work. Here, all of these reasons it doesn't work. And then they looked around and they said, then who's gonna write the libretto? And then everybody kind of looked at me. And I can tell you that as a kid on the east side of St. Paul, my parents didn't have the money to send me to the operas. The first time I went to an opera, I was at Carleton College, and TRIO Student Support Services took us to the opera so that we would know what the art form was. And immediately I fell asleep. When I was studying to become a writer in New York City, there were $5 student tickets to see the opera, and I went a few times, but again, I fell immediately asleep. So I never saw the possibility of my work with an opera. But the moment they all looked at me, do you know what I thought to myself? I thought, if I don't do this, then I will be saying one more time that we can't do something, simply because we've never been granted the opportunity. It was so important for me to say to them, yes, if you let me read your operas, if you let me see what happens not only in front of the curtain but behind it, if you show me how it's done, then I'm going to give it my best go. Because I don't want another poor kid to think that they cannot do something simply because the opportunity was beyond their reach. And so I said, yes, I'll write that libretto. And I did. And what you saw, all of those songs are written by Kao Kalia Yang, who cannot sing, who has never played an instrument because we never could afford that. And I did it with my whole heart to honor traditional Hmong song poetry, to honor my father, to honor all of our parents who've traveled so far, to give us the gift of story. And so for me, it's an incredible thing because now it is the first main stage production produced by Minnesota Opera or any other operatic company in the country. Because it's the first Minnesota production to have not only a woman librettist, but a woman composer, to have a woman, a conductor. It becomes the first Minnesota opera to be sold out 6 months before premiere date. These markers are important for me to open up another door for another librettist, another composer, another Hmong person coming along who wants to take that stage. That's why I do the things I do. Did I imagine it as an opera? I didn't know how. But granted the opportunity, could it live as one? In my heart, it was always a yes. So I am so honored that you saw it. It's such a gift to me. My dad came to see it, and my mom came to see it, and some of my students, I was teaching at the University of Minnesota then, they came and they asked my dad, they said, how was it? How was it, Mr. Yang? And my dad said to me, I'm gonna need a few months. You know, my dad said, you live your life once, and it is your life. You see it lived before you, and it becomes art. I don't think I'll ever forget those words. For my father to see his life become art. Anyone else? I want to be respectful of our time. So, Nelsie, I think you get the final one.
She's going to take the final.
Okay, so special to be able to be here at every event. I want to thank you for sharing it out to the community. But seriously, it's like to me a dream come true to be able to meet you and hear you read your book because when I was in college, it was when I had my very first class where the book would be read. It was written by a Hmong American woman, and I was the late homecomer. And so it was, I think back so much to that experience because when I think about our young folks today, they are getting to see so many different things that even when I grew up as someone who was born here than it was, even their experiences are so starting to get where now they see even more people in leadership. That's really, really incredible. And so I wanted to ask if you would be able to share about the biggest challenge that you face when you write your books, and also what is most rewarding about this journey that you have taken.
I love this question. I can tell you about the first time I applied for a job at a major university, and I was already teaching at one. But the question was, and the late homecomer had come out, it won the Minnesota Book Awards and the Penn finalists and all of that. My supervisor called me in and said, oh, this university has just called me, and they wanted to know if Kao Kalia Yang can piece together a sentence, subject, verb, and noun. That's an official conversation around Kao Kalia Yang, whether she was fit to teach at a university. And this conversation in different ways would happen again across the spaces of my life. At another university, they asked, are you smart enough to teach our students? And I don't think that the normal white male gets that question. You know, the truth is that we're a tiny, tiny people. And everybody's question has always been, is she good enough? You know, is she famous just because among her community? Is that why Kao Kalia Yang can do the work that she does? And even today, I meet that question in different ways all the time. The gift of what I do is that I get to go places where maybe Hmong people have never been before. And I get to speak from the depths of my Hmong heart. And I get to speak about the beauty that lives in our homes and the love that keeps us whole, even in a broken world. You know, my book this year about my mother, the final family memoir from me for a while, Where Rivers Part. When people look at my mom, they see this woman with red hands. They see this woman who stands along the aisles with WIC vouchers in her hands. They see how she waits in line on Christmas Eve so that her kids can have Christmas tomorrow. My mother is the person who opens the door when the Meals on Wheels truck comes into the housing projects. That's what they see. But there is so much they don't see. They don't see what those hands have done, how many lives those hands have carried. They don't see that my mother, despite all of this, is a woman who walks her chin parallel to the ground. They don't see how one time we went to a university and she asked where the bathroom was, and the people said, oh, it's only for people coming for the talks. And they don't see how after that, my mother, every single institution we went to, she asked to use the bathroom. They don't see how in a room full of people, they say, oh, will Kalia's mother stand? And my mother says, oh, I don't want to. They don't see that courage, that stubbornness, that beauty that lives within. That's the beauty of the work that I do. I talked with Kevin Kling, another beautiful Minnesota author, and Kevin says that every time Kevin writes, Kevin gets to turn the people he loves into clowns. He'll sit at the dining table and he'll look at his mom and dad and his aunts and uncles and he'll say, how do I make them funny? I have the opposite job. Every time I'm in the world, I have to turn that man who walks in flip-flops in the middle of a Minnesota winter into a human being. I have to show them the inside. Those feet in the flip-flops, they're shrapnel, and that they hurt him across the seasons. That's the kind of work that I do. And I think it's such honorable work, Nelsie. I think it's such a gift that I get to do this first on the page in the quiet of people's spaces, and then sometimes in spaces like this, before my community, and sometimes I go places where none of you are present, and I'm the first Hmong person they meet, and they don't know what to expect. And I said this morning, but it is true. The number one comment I get is, you are not what we expected. And the question is always, what did you expect? What did you expect? And so it's been such a blessing to do that work, and to do it with incredibly courageous editors who tell me in different ways, it's okay. It's okay to do the work that you burn to do in the world. The page will not light up. You'll be okay. It's such a beautiful thing.
So we're going to keep, I think that I can try to listen to Kalia speak all day. I'm also like doing a podcast. I might listen to this, come up with word just to kind of summary for the 650 middle schoolers I have here. We want to make sure that we have enough time to give our audience an opportunity to review after our presentation as well. So we're coming to the very end. But I do want to just take this time to say how special this event has been, and how special a day we have here at because you chose to collaborate with us. You chose to be here. And most importantly, for me, representing our previous effect, that we have everyone here to celebrate with us tonight. And that is this sense of community that I think is, you can't really replace this or replicate this anywhere else. So thank you for making this like a wonderful experience, and for etching this in all of our kids, because they'll remember me for the rest of their life. And the many kids that's going to be trickling down the party as well. They'll be talking about the year that free. I want to just also share, and I know that this morning I said this for the staff that was here this morning, but I feel like it's true, so I really want to just say that the story, the Diamond Explorer, to me, like having had the opportunity to read ahead of a lot of you, I feel like this is a great story that really depicts the experience of many of our immigrant population, many of the Melvins. I have a lot of Melvins here at Creek as well. They may not know that they're Melvin, but they are Melvin, and once they have an opportunity to look, they'll see that for themselves as well. And so, again, it's really reflective of what's going on. It's really reflective of us, not only here at Battle Creek, but it's really reflective of St. Paul School in the city of St. Paul as well. So to help us close tonight, I would like to invite Mayor Zhang, who is the Senior Director of Public Communication from Governor Walz and Lieutenant Flanagan's office, to come and join me. So Mayor, you can make up your way here.
Thank you.
Mary previously was the vaccine outreach director for the Minnesota Health Department's COVID-19 response on vaccines, equity, and engagement. Mary is a proud St. Paul alumni. She went to Longfellow, Magnet, Washington Middle School, it was just a middle school, not class of 12, and then eventually graduated from Arlington High School. And almost all of Mary's siblings all graduated from St. Paul High School, including the late Marty Jean, who was a board chair of St. Paul schools. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Mary.
Thank you, Principal Waiting. Just want to share this. It's been such an inspiring evening today with Kalia, faculty, local staff, students, families, alumni, and the community who is here. Thank you so much, Kalia, for sharing your gift of imagination and creativity to everyone. And you all may have already heard that in 2023, our governor, Tim Walz, and Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flandren passed a bill called the READ Act that supports students so that they would reach their reading goal at or above grade level every year. And so personally witnessing this book launch tonight as a second generation Hmong American student who's a proud product of the St. Paul Public Schools, we didn't have these types of tools or books around. But now we have more tools, we have more books. So thank you so much, Shadia. And also, it just reminds us that through storytelling, it brings to light to all the invisible stories and experiences of Asian Americans, immigrants, and refugee families. It brings a perspective to a student's exploration of their identity, the influences around them, and their resilience to be themselves proudly in today's world. And so with that, I am also proud to present a letter from the Governor Tim Walz for Principal Kao Kalia and also you, Kalia. I will read it and present a copy to you. On behalf of the people of Minnesota, I would like to extend my congratulations to Kao Kalia Yang on the launch of another successful and beautifully written book. The Diamond Explorer is relatable to many across Minnesota. And it is through books like these that students and adults alike learn about the different cultures that strengthen our communities. Thank you to Principal Yang and all the Battle Creek Middle School staff for hosting this community celebration for Kalia and her work. Her previous publications honoring and explaining the stories of Hmong refugees in the Twin Cities, Hmong culture, and Hmong history are extremely important to the history of our state. As a former teacher, I know the value of events like these, as they are expanding the experiences of our students and investing in their future. I want to express my gratitude and commend your commitment to education, diversity, and cultural opportunities. I wish you all the best during the celebration and book reading. Sincerely, Tim Walz, Governor of Minnesota.
Kalia, thank you again for making my dreams come true, and for making and for changing lives here at Battle Creek. I know that our audience has been waiting patiently because they would like their one-on-one with you as well. So I'm just going to kind of help us along, give some logistical. So tonight, St. Paul Public School had offered and gave a voucher for every St. Paul Public School student that's here tonight to get a book. So you should have a voucher. For those folks who are getting a voucher, if you can exit towards that back door, right next there, we have a table where you can change your voucher for a book that's already signed by Kalia. Okay, so pick up your book, and then we also have another section, the red balloon, for anyone that would like to purchase one tonight. They will be in the same hallway as well. Once you pick up your book, if you would like a folder or you would like an additional, even more personalized message, we have in the comments a table that Kalia will be there to take you to that. If you want a folder or you want to maybe ask a question or just get an additional, if you can make your way out there, we'll have a line and you guys will have your opportunity to again get that one folder. Thank you so much everyone for being here. We also have water and cookies to kind of keep all of you hydrated for this weather, so on your way out, please don't hesitate to grab something to go. Thank you so much, and we hope that you will come back for the many more Battle Creek celebrations that we have here. So, thanks again, and have a good night.
All right, let me take you. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Let me take you over there. Yeah.